Hey guys, welcome back to the best market focus videos you ever see out there. Alright, that's just a joke. So there's lots of channels out there with like pretty good market focus compared to mine. I haven't even started, so that's just a joke. But let's go on and I'll show you guys what I'm looking at. So we'll start with the trade recap. So I'm gonna pull this up, and it was quite a busy week, so I'll show you guys what we had for this week. And let's start with NAS100. So I'm just going to show you guys what we're looking at. So there's a trade on NAS100, and here's my intention on this pair. Oh no, hold on. So we had NAS100 right here. So the intention was to take a sell from here and see price moving to the downside. So I'm going to show you guys what we made from this. So I closed this right here. I closed it here. So normally, this is on the 4-hour time frame. So normally I was expecting prices to get to an area like this. So I closed this one like pretty early. I just had to hold on a little bit longer, but I closed it pretty early. So, and again, it wasn't a bad risk to reward on this one, even though I closed it early. So I closed this at plus 4.69%. And then I reattempted the buys, or I tried doing a buy after closing the sells. I tried the buys here and this took me out. So I had a -1 on this buy. So for the sells, I had plus 4.69, and for the buys, I had -1. So give or take, I made almost 3.69% on the NAS trade. Now let's look at the S&P one. Same thing with the S&P. We'll start with the sells. Where is it? All right, right here. So the same thing, the S&P and NAS100. If I take a trade on the S&P, I almost always take a trade on NAS100 as well. So you're looking at this right here. I had the sales and the intention was to drop prices to an area like this. Now with the S&P one, this played out easily. There wasn't any roadblock or anything. So when you look at this, the aftermath of it, so this played out completely like perfectly. So I made plus 4.5% on this. So that's it right there. So that was a plus 4.5% on the S&P 500. And after the sales, I tried doing a buy. So the intention was to take these buys to take out these highs. And so we can see prices moving all the way to 6,500. And I got stopped out on this one. So we're looking at a -1 after this. So give or take on this pair, I made plus 3.5%. So when you combine this with what we made on NAS, we're almost up about 7% already. Now let's look at US30. So on US30, I tried the buys on US30, and this is the same price action thing I showed you guys, and we've been tracking this. So I was waiting for prices to come back, giving me this consolidation or that inability for prices to drop to the downside, so I can take the buys again to the upside. But I got wicked out on this one, so that's a -1 on US30. So if you look at it, I got stopped out on US30. That's a -1 right there. So you look at my positions, I had NAS, S&P, and US30, and I think I showed you guys the gold one already. So I mentioned this last week. So this was a -1 on the sales for gold, which eventually played out. So this was the sales I was looking at on gold. I just want to believe I showed you guys this already. I was looking for these sales to the downside to take out areas like this. Now I got wicked out on this, and then price just played to the downside, but I want to believe I mentioned this last week already. So I'm not considering gold. So I'm looking at NAS100, S&P, and US30. Those are the trades I was actively involved in. So that's it for the trade recap. So let's go to the charts, and I'll show you guys what I'm looking at. All right guys, so here's the DXY, and I have the DXY on multiple time frames. So the reason I have it on multiple time frames is just because sometimes I like looking at what price is doing on higher time frames, in as much as the daily time frame is the highest time frame I'll look at. So every now and then I like looking at, let's say, the weekly and the monthly, just to get an understanding of what price is doing, because sometimes I'm struggling on the daily time frame. So I would like to look at higher time frames just to see what price is doing on those time frames. And if prices shifting away from the daily trend line and stuff like this, then I have to look at the weekly, I have to look at the monthly. So if you look at this piece of price action right here, I'm just gonna use this one, like the daily, and let's start from the daily time frame as well. But hold on, so look at what's happening on the DXY. Prices moving up, there's a pullback. Prices moving up, there's a pullback. And you can look at this on the daily time frame, but again, If you step to the to the monthly, you still have a better understanding of what price is trying to do. So personally, I'll start on the daily time frame. So this is the same thing we've been looking at, and I still have my markings on. So what was my thought process when I was looking at the DXY from last week? What was I expecting, and has anything changed? So this is what I was looking at. The first thing is I'm using two concepts here: psychological levels and trend lines. So how is price moving, where is price at, and where is price most likely going to gravitate to? So you look at this piece right here. So you look at this massive movement to the upside. That was a bullish run, and then you had a violation that occurred. Now this is what I was looking at last week. I've said this already. We had a bullish run right here, and we had a violation. Now this doesn't mean the buyers are completely out of the market, because what people tend to do is, once you see a bullish run like this and then you get a violation and you get a pullback, and now they're expecting price to do something like this. So price doesn't change from a bullish run to a bearish run that easy. It's going to give you some complex structure. It's going to make it very difficult for you to anticipate or predict. So that's where my approach comes in, and I have a different way of looking at prices. So yes, we had this bullish run, but I'm not focused on this. So we had this bullish run, we had a violation. So I'm not focused on the sales. I'm not looking at this and saying, all right, price is just going to tank, so price is going to pull back and start selling. Price doesn't work that way. It doesn't play that way. So it's going to give you complex structures, and it's going to make it really difficult for you. So what psychological levels am I looking at? Where is price at, and where is price most likely going to gravitate to? So price is currently trading between 110, which is here, and 100 flat. So price is currently closer to 110. But when you look at the structure before this, you had a bullish run, you had a violation. So my take on this is price still has to test an area like this. So price has to test this area, price has to test this highs, and price has to test this trend, this psychological level of 110. So when it comes to my buyers on the DXY, looking at it from the daily time frame, so I can step down to the 8-hour, the 4-hour, and the hourly, but the daily time frame already gives me a clear picture right here. And I'm sticking to my principle. I'm sticking to the way I look at price. It might be different from the way you're looking at it, and that's totally fine. So we don't have to do it the same way. So the aim is just to make money from it. And if I can make money and you can make money as well looking at prices differently, that's totally fine by me as well. So looking at this, I'm expecting prices to go all the way to 110. So how is price going to move to 110? And here is where I start looking at price from this structure thing. So now we're having a push to the upside, and I'm expecting some consolidation or some difficulty for prices to move to the downside. Once I see this inability for prices to move to the downside, then I'm expecting prices again to move to the upside. So on the daily time frame, I'm going to put this on the daily time frame, keep it fixed on the daily time frame. This is what I'm looking on the daily time frame. So once you have this structure thing on the daily time frame, and you can tell price is going to consolidate a little bit, or I'm looking for this consolidation, this inability for prices to drop to the downside. So once I see this inability for prices to drop to the downside, then I'm expecting prices again to move to the upside. So coming into next week, in as much as I'm expecting this massive movement to the upside, there's a high possibility we might see the DXY selling a little bit, or see the DXY consolidating, and it's a good thing. So if the DXY starts consolidating, if it starts selling, I'm not looking for impulsive sales to the downside. So yes, you can see sales coming in, but these sales, or the sellers, are going to cap their sales so the buyers can come in again. My bias on the DXY remains the same unless price proves me wrong or price shows me something else. I'm still going to stick with what I'm saying is going to happen on the DXY. I'm expecting the DXY to move all the way to 110. I'm expecting the DXY to take out these highs, and I'm expecting the DXY to test an area like this. Once we get to 110, then I'll make the decision. An inability for prices to go through 110, then I'm going to have, let's say, my primary buyers on the DXY as a sell coming again to the downside. But for now, every sell you see on the DXY, for me personally, is a temporal sell, and I still have my bullish buyers on the DXY. So this is what I'm looking on the daily time frame. Now, what is the 8-hour time frame telling me? So let's step down to the 8-hour time frame. So look at this on the 8-hour time frame. We mentioned this last week. So same thing. I'm still expecting the DXY to move to the upside. Now, we don't trade the DXY, but I had this risk to reward tool right here just to show you like just a visual representation of what I'm looking at the DXY. So we took out these lows. Once we took out these lows, I started looking at price movement to the downside. So price made a low right here, price made a low right here, price made a low right here. And if you look at this period right here, price stopped. So there was this inability around an area like this. So once I saw this, like during the week thing, once I saw a movement thing like this, I knew we were expecting some movement to the upside from the DXY. And it's always very easy, like price is going to tell you what it's trying to do. Price is going to show you like the moves before it even happens. So once we took out this area, I was waiting for some difficulty or this inability from the sellers, so we can then look at this massive or look at this impulsive move to the upside. Now we've had this impulsive move to the upside. So how is price going to move now from an area like this? So let's take out this. So we still have this in mind, like price is still headed to 110. Price still has to take out this area. I'm going to put this on the chart. Price is still going to take out this area. Price is still going to take out this highs, and we're headed to 110. So how is price going to head to 110? So I'm looking at something like this. Let's say pull back some inability or some difficulty, and then price moving again to the upside, which is what I showed you already on the daily time frame. So that's it right there. So just some kind of difficulty. So let's expect some sales to come in, or let's expect a consolidation thing. Yeah, so let me make this better so it's easy. So let's say we're expecting sellers to come in, right? So once you see the sellers coming in, it can give you some kind of consolidation. And once you have your consolidation, the consolidation simply tells you there's an inability for prices to move to the downside. And once you see this inability for prices to move to the downside, then you can expect the further move, or you can expect a further move from the DXY to the upside. Now, you might not see this consolidation thing like this, and you might just see prices pulling back and giving you a structure move like this to the upside. That's still fine. So all you have to do is ask yourself, what is the DXY trying to do? But I'll keep this right here. Ask yourself, what is the DXY trying to do? I understand where price is headed to, but what is it showing me? Like, is price showing me some difficulties to move to the downside? Is there this inability for prices to move to the downside? So if there's an inability for price to move to the downside, then I'm expecting a move again to the upside. So that's what I'm looking at on the 8-hour time frame, and the same thing we looked at already on the daily time frame. You can look at this on the 4-hour time frame. It's not going to change anything. So let's take this one more time on the 4-hour time frame, and I'll show you something. So remember, we had a massive movement to the upside, then we had a violation, and we had this highs made, so this internal high thing, and price started putting in lower lows and stuff like this, and there was an inability for price to make lower lows right here. So at this point, you're looking at this and saying, all right, price is moving to the upside. So that's what you're looking at. Now price is moving to the upside. Once you have something like this, you then need to wait for prices to, because you've seen this coming down, you see the sellers coming down, like there's this selling pressure, and you see prices moving to the downside, then it flips. There's an inability, price switches like this direction. So all you have to wait is for the pullback and inability, then you're expecting prices to move, let's say, to 110. And that's the way I look at prices. And I try to keep it as simple as possible. 2 principles: psychological levels and trend lines. And once you have psych levels and trend lines, all you have to do is look at price and ask yourself, show me these inabilities, show me the difficulties, show me the areas where you find it difficult to move to the downside or to the upside, so I can then hop in and maybe join the continuation or the reversal. So once you start looking at price this way, it becomes very easy, and it's not a complex thing. It's a very simple approach, and all you have to do is practice it. Look at price every time. Look at it the same way. Just stay consistent with the way you're looking at prices, and over time it's going to become very easy. Now, is there a possibility that the DXY can sell? So let's look at this on the daily time frame. So is there a possibility that the DXY can sell and move to the downside? So if you guys remember, I said occasionally I'll look at the weekly time frame, and sometimes I'll even look at a monthly time frame. So occasionally I'll come to time frames like this, like higher time frames, and look at it and say, what is price doing? In as much as I'm stuck on the daily time frame, I just want to have an understanding as to what price is doing on higher time frames. So on the monthly time frame, you have this massive move, you have a pullback thing, or you have a consolidation, and you have price moving again to the upside. So there's a possibility the DXY can still sell to an area like this, and once price comes back to an area like this, you're looking at this period right here, or this area, as your pivot point. So you're looking for the same thing right here as a pivot point. So price can come back to an area like this, and then you see prices moving to the upside. So yes, there's a possibility for the DXY to sell. Yes, there's a possibility for my bias to be wrong. But if my bias is wrong, if the buy thing I'm looking on the DXY doesn't hold, I already have at the back of my mind the next alternative, which is the sales. And I know where the sales is probably going to go to. I know where the sellers are probably going to take prices to. And there is nothing that beats preparation when it comes to trading. Yes, I can be wrong with my bias on the DXY on the daily time frame, but at the same time, I'm looking at the monthly, I'm looking at the weekly, and I understand what price is doing. So if my bias on the daily is wrong, I can switch easily and look at the sales on the monthly and the weekly, and from there I will move, let's say, back to the daily time frame and look at what I've been showing you guys. So I'll step back to the daily. And once I step back to the daily, understanding what's happening on the monthly and the weekly, it becomes very easy for me to flip this bias thing from bias to then looking at sales. So the first thing you have to do, trade the way you're trading, stay consistent, and keep it simple. So that's it for me on the DXY. I'm still expecting prices to move to the upside, and as I told you guys, I could be completely wrong, but sometimes all you need is just a temporal sell from the DXY, and you see massive movements on other pairs like S&P, NAS, gold, and US30. So that's it for me on the DXY. So let's look at the next pair. Alright guys, so the first pair we're looking at is US30, and this is US30 on the daily time frame. Now I took a loss on the buy, so I did attempt to buy on this, which I mentioned during the trade recap, and I was expecting prices to move to the upside. So I took a loss on US30 once I attempted the buys. But what is price telling me on the daily time frame, and how can you align yourself to take, let's say, the continuation when it comes to a pair like this? So you're looking at this on the daily time frame. The first thing you ask yourself is, how is price moving, and what are the psychological levels you're working with on the trend lines you're looking at? So if you go off of how price is moving, you've had a massive movement, you had a consolidation, you had a massive movement, you had a pullback. Price tested an area like this, 45,000, you had a pullback. So you're looking at this right here. You're seeing periods where price is coming back to an area like this, pivot point has been set. You look at this, price came back to an area like this, there's a pivot point, and prices come back to an area like this. So normally you should expect this to hold as a pivot point. Now if this is a pivot point, then you're expecting prices to continue its move again to the upside. So I'm going to clean this. So that's how simple you can make your analysis on the daily time frame. Where is price at, and where is price most likely going to gravitate to? That's all I look for on the daily time frame. Now the psychological levels I'm looking at is 45,000 and 40,000. So this is the same level we looked at last week, 45,000 and 40,000. So once we had an inability for prices to go through 45,000, Normally you should expect prices to move all the way to 40,000, but you understand there's a trend line thing right here, and this is something we spoke about last week. Because there's a trend line from a higher time frame, or from, let's say, on this time frame, because you're having this trend line right here, and there's a pivot point that has been set already. So the pivot point has been set already. As price pulls back to that pivot point, an inability for prices to go through the pivot point, then you're expecting a further move again to the upside. Now the first area price is most likely going to test is 45,000, which is a psychological level thing right here. So let's zoom in and see what's actually happening. So this again is on the daily time frame, and prices simply pulled back to an area like this. Prices pulled back to an area like this, which is your pivot point. You had another pivot point right here, and you can look at the same thing. Price reacted like this, giving you this illusion like we're breaking out of this trend line. Then price came back inside, and you had a further move again to the upside. So the same thing, price faked as if it's moving outside, and you've had prices coming back here. So looking at this, I'm expecting US30 again to move all the way to 45,000, which is the same thing I was looking at last week. It's the same thing I was expecting last week, but I probably got in too early. So let's look at this on the 8-hour time frame. So I'm just going to take out some of these lines. Cool. So same thing, because we're looking at the same structure, I'm just going to clean the chart so it makes it look like really clean and neat. So what we're looking at right here, so you had a massive movement, 45,000. You had a rejection from the sellers, taking prices all the way to the downside. Now there's an inability for prices to move to the downside, so I'm expecting prices again to come back to 45,000. Now the question is, how do you get involved in a situation like this? So getting involved in a situation like this, we need to move, let's say, to lower time frames. So this right here is the buy attempted date, and price stopped me out, and price is trying to move again to the upside. So I'm going to take this out right here. So how do you get involved in a situation like this? So this is on the 4-hour time frame. So you should understand already, price is moving to the downside like this. So price is making lower lows and lower highs. So you're looking at this movement thing right here. Price is making lower lows and lower highs, lower lows and stuff like this. And here you had an inability for prices to make further lows, and now you've had a movement thing to the upside. So what you can do is wait for prices to pull back, giving you an inability for prices to move again to the downside, so you can take this movement thing to the upside. So if you're looking for, let's say, a possible entry, because I'm still expecting the buys, so you want to see buyers stepping in, you want to see sellers coming in an inability, and then you can take this movement again to the upside. So that's what I'm looking at on US30. I still have these buyers to the upside. I still want to see prices moving to the upside. So my buyers is to see prices moving to the upside. Now it might be difficult having a perfect stop loss on this, and the reason I'm saying so is because of this candle right here. It might be difficult getting like a good stop loss on this, because if you have to put your stop loss below an area like this, it might be risky. So let's see, but you just have to do what you have. So let's say you take an entry here with that inability right there. So you want to put your stop loss here. This should give us, let's say, 1:4, and this is something, if I see this setup thing, yeah, something like this, maybe a 1:4, I'll probably take this. So I think it's quite easy, because you're looking at this, so you're making a decision on lower time frames, but you've looked at what price is doing on higher time frames. So this right here is on the daily time frame, and you've seen what price is doing on these higher time frames. So look at this on higher time frames. How is price moving on higher time frames? Where is price at, and where is price most likely going to gravitate to? So the daily time frame is telling you an inability for prices to go through this area. We should test an area like this, because price showed you the same thing here. There was an inability for prices to go through this area, and then we tested an area like this. So a similar thing is happening right here, an inability for prices to go through this area. We should have a test of 45,000. Now price can go further than 45,000. So just looking at this, price can go further than 45,000. So what's the next level price can get to? That has to be 50,000. So I'm gonna, let's see. So take this out and put 50,000 right here. So you're looking at this and saying, and this is something, so when you look at prices from higher time frames, you're looking at it from, let's say, the weekly, monthly, daily and stuff like this, you can see the bigger picture thing. So if price goes through 45,000, where is price most likely going to gravitate to? You might see some kind of consolidation here, but price is then headed to 50,000. So if these buys do hold, if the buys do hold at an area like this, then we're expecting prices to move all the way to 50,000. Now, if for some reason the DXY keeps moving to the upside like impulsively and crazy, then you should expect a breakout of an area like this. You get a test and you see prices dropping all the way to 40,000. So while waiting for these sellers to come in and show me like, all right, we really want to sell, I'm still going to have these buyers on US30 to take prices to the upside. And the bare minimum for me has to be the next psychological level, which is 45,000. So that's the analysis on the daily time frame. It's straightforward, it's easy. So step back to the 8-hour time frame. So that was the analysis on the daily. You step down to the 8-hour time frame. You gauge the sellers coming in. You wait for these sellers to complete. You get a break of this, you get a slow reaction from the sellers right here, and you're looking for buys. Now you can step down to the 4-hour time frame, and this is what we're looking at. So on the 4-hour time frame, I didn't get in at an area like this, so I missed the interest right here. I missed those buys at an area like this. But if the buyers have to continue, I'll wait for this slow reaction from the sellers and inability of prices to move to the downside. I'll look at this on the hourly time frame. And inability of prices to move to the downside at an area like this, then I'm looking for the buys back to 45,000 at a minimum. So that's my analysis on US30, and I hope it's easy. And if you like this, just drop a comment down. All right, guys, so let's look at the next pair. All right, guys, so let's look at NAS100. So this is NAS100. I have multiple time frames right here, and again, it's just the beauty once you can look at price from multiple time frames. So now this is NAS100 on all, let's say I have it on the weekly, daily, 8 hours, and the 4-hour time frame. So if you notice a glitch, that's because I think my internet is trying to mess up. So I did attempt this buys right here, and I got stopped out on this. Remember, I took the sells from an area like this, dropped it all the way to an area like this, capped out, and then I tried the buys and I got stopped out on this buy. So let's look at this. So first thing, I'm gonna take this out because we're done with this already. That was a loss, so I'm gonna take this out. So look at this for multiple time frames. What is price doing? That's how you need to look at prices. What is price doing on multiple time frames? You look at this on the weekly time frame, we're headed to the upside. You look at this on the daily time frame, price is pulled back to this trend line. You look at this on the 8-hour time frame, you're looking for this inabilities from prices. You look at this on the 4-hour time frame, it's almost the same with what price is doing on the 8-hour time frame. So now, not to confuse you, let's start on the daily time frame. For example, put this on the daily time frame. How is price moving? Where is price at? And where is price most likely going to gravitate to? Zoom out a little bit so you can see what price is doing. You have an impulsive move, you have a pullback. You have an impulsive move, you have a pullback. Every time price pulls back, it pulls back to your trend line, and it pulls back to an already established pivot point. So once price gets to a pivot point that's been established already, you're expecting buyers to step in again. So you have this move, you had a consolidation, price just pulled back again to the trend line thing. So as price pulls back to this trend line, pivot point was set. Once you have a pivot point set, you're expecting prices to move to the upside. Pivot point set already, because you're looking at this area, you know the pivot point is set already. Same thing, price does the same thing here. You're looking at an area like this as a pivot point. So just looking at this on the daily time frame, you can tell already the NAS100 is headed to 25,000. Just looking at this on the daily time frame. So once you have this already, now you can zoom in. So let's zoom in and see what's happening. So I didn't take this buys, but if you remember, go watch last week's market focus. This is what we was looking at. We was expecting prices to drop all the way to this area, to this pivot point, then we can take the buy. So I just had this buy thing right here, but I didn't take the buys. I haven't taken the buys as of now, but I had this because this is what we was looking at last week. So you have this area right here, and price is playing off of this trend line. So now two principles, psychological levels and trend lines. Where is price at? Where is price most likely going to gravitate to? So price is most likely going to gravitate to 25,000, which is this psychological level right here. Price was very close to 20,000. So we're playing between 25,000 and 20,000. That's it. We're playing between 25,000 and 20,000. And inability for prices to go through 20,000, you're expecting prices to move all the way to 25,000. That's how price moves, based off of the principle of psychological levels. An inability for price to go through one level, price then tends to gravitate towards the next area. So that's what I'm looking at on NAS100, and this is on the daily time frame. So if I take this out, and you step down to lower time frames, so let's say the 8-hour time frame. So let's step down to the 8-hour time frame. I'm going to take this out because it played out already. Take this out as well, and most likely take out this. So this is on the 8-hour time frame. Now look at this piece right here. Let's keep it clean. So look at this piece right here. So as price pulls back to an area like this, so the question is, how do you get involved in a situation like this? Because you've looked at this already on the daily time frame, and you can tell NAS100 is headed to 25,000, which is like, let's say if it heads to 25,000, that's going to be another high. That's going to be a record high as well. So price is making record highs, but I'm saying in terms of psychological levels, once we got to 20,000, that was a record high. If we get to 25,000, that's another record high thing for me, just based off of psychological levels. So that's where price is headed to. Now, how do you get involved in a situation like this? So I want you to understand something. So it's very easy for you to look at this, let's say hindsight, because now price is bouncing off of an area like this. You can look at this in hindsight and say, okay, I would have taken the buys from here. But how do you know price is going to bounce off of an area like this and then move to the upside? It's always very difficult for you to tell. So what you can do, wait for prices to get to this pivot point, and then you step down to lower time frames and look for this rejection, look for this inability, look for this difficulty for prices to move to the downside. Then you can take the buys. So now on the 8-hour time frame, it's quite difficult for you to tell, because on the 8-hour time frame you can somewhat see like the sellers are coming in. So you see lows here, you see lows here, and you have another low right here. So it's quite difficult for you to tell. So what this tells you on the 8-hour time frame is sellers are still in play. And if the sellers are still in play, then you need to wait for this selling momentum to complete. Once the sellers are done, there's an inability for prices to move to the downside. Then you can take these buys to the upside. So you step down to the 4-hour time frame. Same thing, we're looking at this on the 4-hour time frame now. It becomes, let's say the structure becomes clearer, because now you're seeing this impulsive move and you're seeing the pullback. You have another impulsive move, there's a pullback. You have another impulsive move, you're waiting for the pullback. So you need to wait for these sellers to complete their move. So if there's a pullback thing right here, you want to see prices coming back, an inability for these sellers to go to the downside, then you're expecting prices to move to the upside. So if you're looking at this on lower time frames, you want to see sellers coming back, you want to see an attempt, you want to see this inability, so you can then take prices to the upside. And this is how I look at prices. It's always very simple. So I didn't take the buys at an area like this, but let's say you take the buys off of an area like this after seeing this inability and stuff like this, and you think, and you can tell price is headed to 25,000. So let's put this. So price is headed to 25,000. This might give us 1:10 again. So we didn't take the initial one, but you can look at something like this and visibility. All right, cool. So on NAS100, that's my game plan on NAS100. So can price sell, let's say, can price sell off from an area like this? So you're looking at this. Is there a possibility for these buyers not to hold and for sellers to come in impulsively. So if you look at this on the 8-hour time frame, yes, there's a possibility for this to happen. You might even look at this on the daily. There's a possibility for this to happen. So this trend line can get violated and you see prices selling, you see prices tanking. It's quite okay. It's not a problem. Let price show you what it's trying to do. As of now, I'm still going off of the trend line and I'm still going off of the psychological levels I'm looking at. There's been an inability for prices to go through 20,000. So at the back of my mind, I know price is headed to 25,000. It's just common sense. An inability for price to go through 20. I'm expecting price to move all the way to 25,000. Now I step down to the 8-hour time frame and I'm looking for possibilities to get in, but then it's very difficult for me to get in right now. Why? Because sellers are still involved. So you can see this selling pressure coming in. So how do you get involved in a situation like this? Step down to the 4-hour time frame and look at the structure thing. You might even want to go as low as the hourly. So hold on, put this on the hourly time frame as well. So let's see, that's on the 4-hour. So let's see, put this on the hourly. So yeah, I have it on the hourly. So if I step down to the hourly, so this is it. This is what you're looking on the hourly time frame right here. So the sellers are still involved. And if you remember, the hourly time frame is the time frame I use for my entries. So I'm not looking at the hourly time frame just to do analysis on. I'm looking at the hourly time frame to take entries on this time frame. So when you look at this, you're looking at this movement, you're looking at sellers. So you still have sellers coming in. If you remember, guys, I did attempt the buys on this because I saw this inability right here. So there was an inability right here. So I saw the sellers coming in, I saw this inability, and there was a push, and I got in on the buys and I got stopped out, and that's fine. So that was the first attempt on this. So I'm going to reattempt the buys on this pair because I still have my buyers to the upside on NAS100. So I want to see the sellers coming in again. So the same thing, because you had a pullback thing right here and then you had sellers dropping prices to the downside. So again, I'm looking at this as the same thing. There's been a push to the upside right here, which is just a pullback thing for me. So let's see how the sellers play out, or let's see how the sellers play out. So an inability for this, and as price starts moving again to the upside, just giving me this consolidation thing right here with this inability, then I'm looking for a movement thing to the upside. That's how I look at prices, and I've been looking at prices the same way and it hasn't failed me. So this is what I'm looking at right here. So once I get the inability, I'm going to keep this glued on the chart. Once I see the inability for prices to go to the downside, for prices to break through this trend line, now you know we're looking at this area, so we'll have to target this highs right here. We're looking at this area right here to take out these highs, and if we can take out these highs, then the next area we're headed to has to be the psychological level of 25,000. So we're looking at this area right here. So that's my game plan on NAS100. It's pretty easy, it's straightforward, it's not that complex. So that's it, guys. There's nothing more I can show you. It's just looking at prices. Where is price at? Where is price headed to? Can you show me some difficulties? Can you show me some inabilities to move to the downside? And if I see these inabilities for prices to move to the downside, then I'm going to take my buys to the upside. Now, there's a possibility this can flip and you start seeing sellers coming in. That's fine, but I need to have my primary buyers, and if price does something else, then I'm going to switch it as well. All right, guys, so let's look at the next pair. Alright guys, so the next pair is the S&P 500, and this is a very interesting one because the reason I even attempted the buys on NAS100, you know, when I trade the S&P 500 on NAS, when I do something on the S&P 500, it influences what I do on NAS100. That's the way I look at prices, that's the way I trade. It might be different for you, but this is how I look at it. This pair is like, it correlates like crazy. So I was looking at this area right here and I took the buys on the S&P 500. So because of this, I had to cap my sales on NAS100 as well, so I could reattempt the buys on NAS100. So I got stopped out on the S&P 500, I got stopped out on NAS100 as well. Remember, I'm trading these pairs on different accounts. So if I take -1, it's just -1 on that account. It's not -1 on the same account, so I'm not doing -2% on the same account. So I'm trading NAS on a different account, trading the S&P on a different account. So I took -1 on this, and I took -1 on NAS as well. But look at this structure thing. Look at the weekly, look at the daily, look at the 8 hours, look at the 4 hour. Now look at what's happening here on the weekly time frame. Look at this rejection thing on this trend line, and it's very close to that psychological level of 6,000. Where do you think price is headed to? Just looking at this from the weekly, an inability for prices to go through this area, we should take out these highs and we should head all the way to 6,500. So that's how I was looking at it. That's why I was looking for the buys of the S&P 500. So I might have come in a little bit too early, and that's fine, because sometimes I need to take these losses just so I can look at price and see what it's actually trying to do, and then I'll reattempt it again. Sometimes I'll attempt, let's say, 2 positions on a pair and maybe get it wrong, and then the third time I get it right and stuff like that. So look at this on the weekly time frame. Again, we don't use the weekly time frame every now and then, but because of what's been happening on these pairs, we've gone through these daily levels. So I'm looking at the weekly areas right now. So there's a pullback to an area like this. There's an inability right here. If price respects this area, the S&P is headed to 6,500. That's what I was looking at. So I'm going to clean this and we can look at the daily. So let's start from the daily. So how is price moving? What are the psychological levels you can use? So if you look at this, it's a very easy way. So price is giving you this movement thing. There's a pullback here. In an area like this, there's a pivot point that was set right here. And price gave you the next swing move, pulling back to areas like this. And every time price pulls back to an area like this, the only thing that makes sense to you at that point is this area is a pivot point. So once price gets to an area like this, I want to attempt the buys. So if you're looking for buys off of an area like this, you need to step down to lower time frames and see what price is doing. But then let's go through our normal scenario. Where is price at and where is price headed to? What psychological levels can you look at, and is there a trend line thing you can play with as well? So looking at psychological levels, we have 6,500 and we have 6,000. Now on the daily time frame, this might look confusing because you're looking at this on the daily time frame, it looks like there's a violation thing in it. But for prices to start selling, you need to see price trading outside this trend line and staying outside this trend line so you can take sales to the downside. So this hasn't happened yet, and there's a high possibility this price can pull back to an area like this, giving you a test of 6,000, and you see price is headed all the way to 6,500. So it's very okay for you to take temporal sales, but then what's the bigger picture thing? What's price showing you from this higher time frames? So looking at it from the daily time frame, I can tell price is headed to 6,500. Am I right all the times? No, but based off of how I look at prices, an inability for prices to go through one area, price is headed to the next. So the psychological level I'm looking at is 6,000. I just want to see prices coming back above 6,000. So let's say you get price pulling back to an area like this, and then an inability for prices to then move again down, going off of this principle of psychological levels, an inability for prices to go through this area, and an inability for prices to take out this trend line, then I'm expecting the movement back to the upside. Now this is what's happening on the daily time frame. So let's look at this on the 8-hour time frame. So I took the buys on this and it didn't go through, so let's take this out. Perfect. So let's keep this analysis on the 8-hour time frame. It remains the same. We was expecting the sales to come in. We was also expecting an inability right here, so we can then see this consolidation thing and then take the buys. So the first one didn't hold through and price just took us out. So how do we get involved in a situation like this? So I'll take this out. So while you're looking at this, the same thing I explained on NAS100, you need to understand, like, this movement thing is from the sellers. So trying to buy from an area like this or trying to buy from an area like this is pretty much very dangerous, because price can just get to this trend line and you see price selling to the downside. So it's always difficult for you to take buys once you see the sellers coming in aggressively. So what you can do is just move down to lower time frames and see. So you want to see this inability. You want to see the inability. So this is something I was looking at. So let's say I move down to the hourly. I'll show you guys why I even attempted to buys on this pair. So look at something like this. Prices moving to the downside, moving to the downside, moving to the downside. So we had a pullback thing. There's an inability right here. So at the time I was looking at this inability trend line right here and stuff. So I could see this inability like for prices to move to the downside. So I had my buys in and I had my stop loss. That was a very easy entry. So it didn't hold through, like price just took me out and price is coming back again to the upside. So I'm still going to do the same thing. I'm just going to trade the same way I've been trading. So let's step back to the 4-hour time frames just so I can. So if you get an entry, let's say, hold on, let's go to the 8-hour. So I want to see this on the 4-hour time frame. Yep, 4-hour and maybe the hourly. So let's look at this on the 4-hour time frame. So how do we get involved in a situation like this? So now you know already we're expecting prices to move to the upside. It's going to be very difficult because you have a break of a trend line. So sometimes price might trade outside this trend line and it starts moving to the downside. But for you to get involved in a situation like this, wait for prices to come back. Wait for prices to come back here. Wait for a test, wait for this inability thing. So price might just give you like this consolidation thing, this inability thing and stuff like this. So that's what you're looking for. If you can see something like this, then that's what you're looking for right there. So an inability for prices to come back below 6,000, an inability for prices to then break out of this trend line again, then you can look for this entry. Now this right here, if price does something like this and you're able to take your buys from here, I want you to hold these buys and you have a stop loss thing around an area like this. If you're able to take the buys off of an area like this, I want you to hold the buys because price has a tendency to then move all the way to an area like this, to 6,500. Now this right here, what you're looking at is, let's say 1:8 for your initial attempt, but price has a potential to give you something like this, pull back. You're looking for a scaling, giving you another move thing. You're looking for a scaling to an area like this. So you might even have, let's say, a potential to do, let's say 1:14, 1:15 of this trade idea, and that's only if it holds. So again, you need to understand we're looking at this at the same time we're looking at the DXY. So all I want to see on the DXY is just some temporal sells or this difficulty for prices to move to the upside. That's all I'm expecting from the DXY. Now I want you to pull back a little bit. Give me this difficulty to move to the upside, which I understand is just a temporal push, so you can then move again to the upside. But if you can do something like this on the DXY, it's gonna, let's say, fuel this move on the S&P500, NAS100 and US30, which is what I've explained already. So that's how I look at prices, and again, it's quite easy, it's quite simple, it's not a complex system. So every time you look at prices, ask yourself, where is price at, and where is price most likely going to gravitate to? What psychological levels are you looking at, and what trend line are you looking at? Because this right here, it looks good already. So all we're waiting for is for prices to come back, show me this inability, show me this inability right here, like just show me that there's some difficulty for prices to move to the downside. Because if I can see this inability for prices to move to the downside, then it's a no-brainer thing for me. I'll take it and I'll put 1% risk on that trade and see if it's gonna play. If it doesn't play, then that's fine. It's just a -1, rinse and repeat, wait for the next opportunity and see how you can take, let's say, another buy, or let's say a sell. All right guys, so that's it for me on the S&P 500. So you're looking at the S&P 500, you're looking at NAS100. It's just a similar move. Now NAS100 looks better than the S&P 500. So the reason I'm saying this is because NAS100 is still within the trend line thing. So if you look at this on the daily, oh, hold on, let me see. Yeah, if you look at NAS100 on the daily time frame, it's still within the trend line. But the S&P 500 on the other hand, it's trading outside this trend line. So you need the S&P 500 to come back inside. So you want to see the S&P 500 coming back inside, testing, so you can then move to the upside. NAS100 on the other hand, this guy looks to be taken over already. So yeah, just look at it, pay attention to what price is doing. Always ask yourself, is there an inability, is there a difficulty for prices to move in the opposite direction? Once you see it, then you can start getting ready for your entries, and pay attention to what's happening on the DXY as well. Alright guys, so that's it for the S&P 500. Let's look at the last pair. Alright guys, so here's gold on multiple time frames as well, the weekly time frame, the daily, the 8 hours, and the hourly. But I'm not really looking at gold to take positions coming into next week, and I'll show you guys what I'm looking at. And compared to the other pairs, I'll probably just focus on the S&P and NAS and maybe US30, because I don't like what's happening on gold right now. So look at the weekly, look at the daily, look at the 8 hours, look at the hourly, and just look at this. How is price moving? Impulse to the upside, impulse to the upside. On the 8 hour time frame, now you have these sales. On the hourly, you have these sales coming in. So the higher time frames is telling you what price is doing, the lower time frame is telling you something else. So let's start on the daily time frame. Let's break this down, let's make it easy. So where is price at, and where is price most likely going to gravitate to? So price is currently trading very close to 3,000, and I think for the past 2 to 3 weeks now, I've been saying this, gold is headed to 3,000. We should have gold testing 3,000 very soon. Now this might switch, like this might not hold through, because there's still a possibility for prices to pull back to an area like this. And again, if price pulls back to an area like this, you know what you're looking at. Pivot point has been set, and you're expecting prices again to get to 3,000. Now if this doesn't happen, price can just go over an area like this all the way to 3,000. Now this is very important, because I've shown you 2 scenarios right here, and the second scenario, which is this one, the one I'm telling you from here, this is where your trend lines play a vital role. So you have this trend line right here, you have this trend line right here. So because of this trend line, you're expecting this, and then you're expecting a movement thing like this. So if you're able to see, let's say, another trend line from an area like this that you can work with, then you can see prices moving again to the upside. So when you look at price, you're asking yourself, where is the swing move, where is the pivot point, where is the trend line, what time frame am I working with? So you're putting all these things together. So this is on the daily time frame. Where is price headed to? At the back of my mind thing, again, I know price is headed to 3,000. Now what's the alternative? Price can drop back to an area like this. So those are all possibilities. So if I take this out, I want to step down to the 8 hour time frame. On the 8 hour time frame, I'm asking myself certain questions. So what psychological levels are we playing with? I'll take this out. So what psychological levels are we playing with? 3,000, and what's the one below? 2,500. So quick question thing. Now once you have this, so you had a massive move to the upside, you had a violation. So what do you think most people look for at an area like this? They're waiting for the pullback to get sales and stuff like this. So that's a general consensus, like that's what most people will respect. But then I look at prices differently. So yes, you have this massive move, you have this violation, and again, price is moving to the upside. So you need to give the buyers another attempt to see what's happening, and give the buyers another attempt to take prices to the upside. So give them an attempt to take prices to the upside. An inability, then you can look for sales to the downside. So you can't just say price is going to move to the downside because you have a break of a trend line. It doesn't happen that way. So what if these guys are just looking for a discounted price, and they can even take a discount all the way to an area like this and still move prices to the upside? So it's very, I don't look at price breaking an area and just saying, all right, cool, because we have a break of a trend line, then we're moving to the downside. So looking at this on the 8 hour time frame, I still have this bias for gold to move to the upside. So now looking at this price action right here, this is where I'll be a little bit cautious. So yes, we've had a break of a trend line. So if I'm taking gold to the upside, the first area for me has to be an area like this. I just want to see prices testing these highs first. So yes, we know gold has to test 3000, but I want to see gold testing these highs, because on inability you might see this drop and then price moving again to the upside. So that's a long-term thing, so it might take some time. So that's your 8-hour time frame. What's the 4-hour time frame telling me? So let's put this on the 4-hour. All right, cool. So on the 4-hour time frame, remember we took this sales and it was a loss, so I got in too early. And again, remember, I'm still looking for the buys, but I'm just gonna take this out right now. Cool. So the 4-hour time frame as well is very difficult for me to tell. So if you're looking for buys off of this pair, you need to understand as well, this right now, you have sellers in control. So you want to see the sellers coming in on inability, and as price starts moving, it's going to give you this inability again to move to the downside. Then you can take the buy. So maybe the hourly time frame will show us something different. So let's see the hourly time frame. All right guys, so on the hourly time frame, this is what you're looking at, and you still have this sales, or you still have sellers in control, and it's very easy for you to tell. Prices making lows, prices making lows and lows and lows and lows. So you want to see price pulling back, you want to see an inability. Once you see something like this, then you might see buyers stepping in. So that's a possibility. So with this pair right now, with gold, I'm really not gonna touch it. Now this is just based off of the way I trade. Now you might look at it differently, and you might see opportunities to buy, you might see opportunities to sell, but I'm telling you, based off the way I trade, I'm not gonna touch this. I'm just gonna sit on my hands, because on the 4-hour time frame, it's still not beautiful for me to go in. I'm just gonna clean this. So the area I'm really paying attention to is this highs right here. So I want to see price, hold on. So I want to see price coming to an area like this, to this highs right here. So I want to see price coming to this highs right here. So we need to get in, if we have to get involved, I want to see price breaking out, maybe coming back, just giving us this inability thing to move to the downside, so we can then take prices to the upside. So if I had to trade this, I'll wait for something like this to happen, and maybe I run an area like this. So let's see, or maybe I run an area like this. Yeah, we can take the buys off of an area like this. So I need to see a lot happening on gold, then I can take the buys. So this is it right now. So this is my game plan on this pair. Hold on. So this is my game plan on gold, and this is a 4-hour time frame. So I'm not gonna get involved right now. I'm just gonna stay a little bit patient and see what price is doing. So this is it. So this is my analysis on gold. I'm expecting prices to test 3000, but for prices to test 3000, I need to see prices testing these highs first. So I don't like the structure thing right now, so I want to see the buyers coming in. So I'm going to show you. I want to see the buyers coming in. I want to see this sellers reacting and inability from the sellers. So you see like this slow movement thing from the sellers, this inability. Then right around an area like this, I might get involved on a pair like gold. So I think I'll be sat on my hands for a couple of days unless I reanalyze a pair, let's say in a day or two, and I see something else. But just going off of this price action right now, I'm not trying to get involved on this pair. So I'm just gonna sit on my hands and wait, and probably get involved if price comes back to an area like this, giving you this movement thing, this inability range thing. You want to buy at the bottom of the range and you take prices to the upside. That right there can give you a 1:6. So there's still a possibility for us to get good, let's say good trades on gold, but for now you just have to be patient. Now compare this price action on gold, compare this to what's happening on US30. Look at US30, price is breaking through, coming back within this trend line thing. So you can wait for this inability, you take prices to the upside. So you still have opportunities on US30. Look at NAS100, price is trading within this area. If you look at this on the 4-hour time frame, so all you have to do on the 4-hour time frame, wait for these sellers to complete. So you wait for the sellers to complete. Once you have the sellers complete their move, you wait for this inability, then you can take the buys. So NAS100 as well is showing you possibilities. You look at the S&P500 as well, wait for prices to pull back in, and you can look at this on the 4-hour time frame. Once prices pull back in, so you wait for these prices to pull back in and inability, then you can take the buys. So when you compare this with what's happening on gold, Gold is the only pair that doesn't make sense right now for me to buy. So if for any reason you want to take maybe sales, you wait for these prices to push to an area like this, then you can take temporary sales, because then the DXY might be moving to the upside. So gold is one pair that can cause a lot of issues. And look at this on the daily time frame as well. Look at this on the daily time frame as well. So how has price been moving? There's an impulse correction thing, impulse correction thing. There's an impulse, so you could see this happening. You get a correction thing as well, so you can see prices moving to the upside. So gold might give you sales compared to the other pairs, and that's why I'm a little bit skeptical with this trade on gold. So in a situation where I have doubts, in a situation where I'm not very sure of what to do, I'll just wait till price can give me more price action. Once I see certain things, then I'll get involved. So right now, gold is not something I want to touch. I'll pay attention to US30. I mentioned that already. US30, NAS100, and the S&P500. And that's it, guys. So that's it for this week's market focus. Make sure you watch the other or the previous videos so you can tag along and just follow along as we're looking at these pairs. It makes it completely easy if you have the entire picture thing. So don't watch one video and just walk away. Like watch all like the previous market focus, so you can look at the thought process and you can see how price is playing after that. All right, guys, so that's it for this week, and drop your comments down so I know what you're looking at, and tell me what pairs you want me to look at as well. All right, bye. So be patient and stay consistent with what you're doing. See you during the next one. Bye for now.